Well, faith and begorra, as the Irish say. We continue on with part 3 of The People Could Fly, because we got cut off when I was showing you the water dragon. And then I resumed filming and took a lovely video just now of Mr. Crow having a bath, but my phone blipped us off again. So I hate this phone. It's just evil. It constantly stymies my potential. So I'm intrepidly moving on to continue the reading of these wonderful stories, and I hope we don't get chopped off yet again. Wiley, his mama, and the hairy man. I know all about that, having once been married to a very, very hairy man indeed. The incredible Yeti. Still wondering about that one. Don't wonder about it at all. Doesn't bear thinking about. That's how thick and boring that one was. But anyway, his sole claim to fame was he was hairy and boring. Mama T does not do boring. She doesn't do too wildly exciting either, because wildly exciting men are never thick and faithful, just saying. So somewhere in that, I've got to find the middle ground, the middleman. But you know what happens to the middleman? He always gets cut out, am I right? Anyway, you have to laugh. So now we continue on with the story. Now, facts are facts. Wiley was a boy. He and his mama lived by themselves with just Wiley's dogs. Say Wiley's papa fell off the ferry boat one time. The river was quick there where he fell. They looked for Wiley's papa a long way down the river and in the pools of the sandbanks, and say they never found him. But they heard a great bad laughing way off across the river, and everybody's saying it. That's the hairy man. Saying Wiley's papa never got across Jordan because the hairy man blocked his way. Wiley, his mama tell him, the hairy man's got your papa, and he's gon' get you if you don't look out. Yes, mama, Wiley said. I'll look out. I'll take my hound dogs everywhere I go. You know, the hairy man can't stand some hound dogs. Wiley knew this because his mama had told him. She knew because she was from the swamps near the Tombigbee River, and she knew conjure. Knew how to lay tricks, put some charms together, or take the tricks away. Knew how to... Wait a minute. She could find a vein of water. She could see in front of her and behind her, and so was called a two-head. So she knew. One day, Wiley taken up his axe and went in the swamp to cut him some poles for a hen roost. He took his hound dogs with him. The dogs went off running after a wild pig. That thing run so far off, Wiley couldn't hear his hounds at all. Well, I hope the hairy man is somewhere away and nowhere around here, Wiley said. Just plug us back in. He picked up his axe to start work. But before he could begin, he spied the hairy man through the trees. Hairy man just grinning at him. Hairy man was ugly, even when he grinned. I think we got Lizard coming back. He won't come near us though, he's scared of us. Oh, there he is. Where was I? Hairy Man was ugly even when he grinned. He was coarse, hairy all over. His eyes burned red as fire. He had great big teeth with spit all in its mouth and running down his chin. He was a terrible looking hairy man. I'm just going to go and get Charlie. She's quite distressed about the fact that the crow kicked all the bath water down. What's going on, Charlie? What's going on with you? Are you upset? Nothing to be upset about. Calm. It's all good. Top up the water. Yeah, that's right. You want to come and help Mummy make the video? Come and help this Mummy make the video. Because I don't think that lizard will eat you, but the lizard might introduce that carpet snake to you, and either way you'll be a goner. Right, where was I? Oh yes, he was a terrible looking hairy man. Don't you look at me like that, Wiley said. Don't you come near me. But the hairy man kept on coming and grinning. Yes, Charlie. Wiley threw down his axe and scrambled up a big laurel tree. You want to go in the tree? Okay. But, alright, Mama worries about snakes, man. I worry about the snakes, Charlie. By the gods. Hello. She's happy now. It's what she wanted. He sees the hairy man hasn't any feet like a man. He has hooves like a cow's. And Wiley had never seen a cow way up a laurel tree, so he knew he was safe. He climbed almost to the top. He looked down. Then he did climb to the top. Here's the hairy man. Looks a bit like a Sasquatch. But Sasquatch don't have horse hooves, or cow hooves, I don't think. Why come you climbing up that tree? Asked the hairy man. My mama told me to stay away from you, hairy man. But what you got there in your crocus sack? And they give an explanation down the bottom. A sack in which to keep animals that make croaking sounds, such as frogs. Haven't got nothing yet, said the hairy man. Go on away from here, said Wiley. Huh, I will not, said the hairy man. He picked up Wiley's axe. He swung it like a strong man, and the wood chips flew out of that tree. Wiley grabbed the tree as tight as he could. He rubbed his belly up against the tree trunk, and he hollered, Fly, wood chips, fly, go back in your same old place. He meant for the wood chips to go back into the tree trunk, and the chips flew back. And that hairy man fumed, stomped, and was fit to be tied. Then he swung the axe again, and Wiley knew he must holler faster. So the two of them went to it, tooth and toenail. Wiley was hollering, and that hairy man was chopping. Wiley hollered till he was hoarse, and pity he saw that the hairy man was gaining on him. "I'll come down part way if you'll make this tree twice as big around," Wiley said. "I'm not studying you," said the hairy man. He swung the axe and swung the axe. "I bet you can't do it," said Wiley. "I bet you can't make it bigger." "I won't even try," said the hairy man. So they went back to it again, with Wiley a hollerin', and the hairy man just chopping away. Wiley about yelled himself finished when he thought of something his mama had told him. She had said, "Tell the hairy man you going to pray and then call your dogs." Wiley yelled to the hairy man, "Stop it now, I got to pray." "What's that mean?" asked the hairy man. "Means I got to pray to the man above," said Wiley. The hairy man knew what that meant, although he'd never heard prayer, and he stayed quiet a moment while Wiley chanced to pretend to pray. Oops, just wanted to show you my little mate's back. Hey, Cookie, try not to poo on my nice clean white clothes. "Hee-yah, dogs! Hee-yah!" Wiley hollered. "Fly, wood chips, fly. Go back in your same old place." "You got no dogs," the hairy man said. "I sent that wild pig to draw them off." "I'm just still praying," Wiley said, and hollered again. "Hee-yah, dogs!" They both heard the hound dogs coming on strong, yelping in a close pack. The hairy man looked worried. "Come on down," he said. "I'll teach you how to conjure." "I can learn all the conjure I need from my mama," said Wiley, and he could too. The hairy man fumed and muttered, but he threw down the axe and hightailed it off through the swamp. Well, when Wiley got himself home safe, he told his mama that the hairy man had almost got him that time. Hairy man would have too, but that he pretended to pray and called his hounds instead, and the hounds run the hairy man off. "Did he have his sack?" his mama asked Wiley. "Yes'm," Wiley said. "Next time he come after you, don't you climb some tree," said his mama. "I won't," said Wiley, "'cause some tree not big enough around." "Don't climb at all. Just stay on the ground and say, 'Hello, hairy man.' You hear me, Wiley?" asked his mama. "No's'm." "He won't hurt you, Wiley," his mama said. "You can put that hairy man down on the ground in the dirt once I tell you how to do him." "But if I put him in the dirt, he'll put me in the croaker sack," said Wiley. "You just do what I say. You say, 'Hello, hairy man,'" his mama said, and he says, "Hello, Wiley," and you say, "Hairy man, I heard you the best conjure doctor around here," and he say, "I reckon I am," and you say, "I bet you can't turn yourself into a giraffe." "You keep telling him he can't, Wiley," his mama told him, "and then he is sure to turn himself into a giraffe." Then you say, "I bet you can't turn yourself into an alligator," and he will too. Then you say, "Anybody can turn theyselves into something big as a man, but I bet you can't turn yourself into a possum." And the hairy man will, and you grab him and throw him in the croaker sack. "Well," said Wiley. "It don't sound just right somehow, but I'll try it." So he tied up the dogs so they wouldn't scare away the hairy man, and he went down to the swamp again. Wiley hadn't been there long when he looked up, and here come the hairy man, just grinning through the trees, just as hairy all over and big teeth showing so wet. He could tell Wiley was out there without his hound dogs. Wiley nearly climbed a tree when he saw that crocus sack, but he didn't. "Hello, hairy man," he said. "Hello, Wiley," said the hairy man. He took the sack off his shoulder and started opening it up. "Hairy man, I heard you were the best conjure doctor around these parts," Wiley said. "I reckon that's true," said the hairy man. "I bet you can't turn yourself into a giraffe," Wiley said. "Shoot, that's no trouble at all," said the hairy man. "I bet you can't do it." So the hairy man twisted, made a long neck, and twisted around, made him long legs, turned himself into a giraffe. "Well, I bet you can't turn yourself into an alligator," Wiley said. This is a woman who once mixed up Sephardi and Ashkenazi dialect, and the rabbis nearly died laughing when I did my conversion course because they said you have to pick one dialect over the other. You can't blend both. I found that deeply embarrassing. Well, I didn't know, did I? I was teaching myself modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew, and my father-in-law, which modern Hebrew's in Sephardi accent, dialect, and my father-in-law of blessed memory, Harry Aarons, was teaching me Ashkenazi dialect because coming from Poland, he was indeed an Ashkenazi Jew. So I'd managed to blend the two dialects when I read Hebrew. So, and of course, I didn't know how ridiculous that would sound because it's not my mama Loshan, am I right? So here we go, let's continue on. The giraffe twisted, got short legs, and twisted around, got him thick skin, and turned into an alligator. He was watching Wiley to see he didn't try to run. "Anybody can turn themselves into something big as a man," said Wiley, "but I bet you can't turn yourself into a possum." The alligator twisted, got smaller, and twisted around, long tail, and turned himself into a possum. Just quick, Wiley grabbed it and threw it in the sack. Just wanted to show you the picture of the giraffe, the alligator, and the possum. He tied the sack up good and tight. Then he threw it in the river. Wiley went home through the swamp. He looked up, and there came the hairy man, grinning through the trees. "I turned myself into the wind and blew out of there," said the hairy man. "Wiley, I'm going to sit right here till you get hungry and fall out of that tree you up in again. You want me to teach you some more conjure?" Woo! Cookie, you gave me a hell of a fright, by the gods. It's an interesting bug you have there, though. Very interesting bug. Holy doolies. Well, that bird sure's comfortable with me. I've been giving him lots of chicken, though. What you doing? Scared me half to hell and back. but I already lives in hell. Anyway, where was I? Mad bird. Well, actually, I live in paradise, but it's open to interpretation, you understand. Depends on my mood or what's going on in my world at this present moment in time. Being dive bombed by a kookaburra right next to my feet was a bit scary, just saying. I mean, if he's going to get that comfortable with me, soon he'll be riding around on my shoulder like Charlie, am I right? It's not so bad. I can handle having a kookaburra as a pet, wild pet, I guess. But he'll have to get to know me a bit better first, because that gave me a hell of a fright. Where was I? Wiley thought a while. He pondered over the hairy man, and he worried about his hound dogs tied up a mile away. Well, Wiley said, you sure lay some pretty good tricks, but I bet you can't make things disappear and go who knows where. Just got to keep an eye on my Charlie, because where is she? Where are you, Charlie? Right, you're over there. Because of snakes. I'm really freaked out about all the snakes lately. Huh, that's what I'm good at, said the hairy man. Look at that old bird nest on the limb there. Now look again. It's gone for good and true. Now, how I know it was there in the first place, asked Wiley. I didn't see it in the first place either, let alone seeing it gone, but I bet you can't make something I know is there disappear. Ha ha, laughed the hairy man. Look at your shirt. Wiley looked down, and his shirt was gone, but he didn't care. It was what he wanted the hairy man to do. That was just a plain old shirt, Wiley said, but this rope I got tied round my pants has got my mama's conjure on it. I bet you can't make it disappear. Huh, I can make all the rope in this county disappear, the hairy man said. Ha ha ha, said Wiley. The hairy man looked mad and threw his chest way out. He opened his mouth wide and hollered loud. From now on, all the rope in this county has gone and disappeared. And truly, the belt that had held up Wiley's pants was gone, and quick. Wiley reared back, holding his pants up with one hand and onto a tree limb with the other. Hee-yah, dogs, he hollered, loud enough to be heard 2 miles away. The rope that had tied up his dogs was gone too, and the dogs came, and the hairy man lit out through the swamp one more time. Charlie! Can't see her now, but she's up there. Well then, when Wiley and his dogs got back to home, his mama asked him, did he put the hairy man in the sack? Yes'm, but he turned himself into the wind and blew right on out of that old croaker sack. That's too bad, said his mama, but you fooled him twice. If you fool him again, he'll leave you alone, but he'll be mighty hard to fool the third time. We have to think hard on how to fool him, Wiley said. I'll work on it directly, said his mama. She sat down by the fire with her chin in her hands. Wiley was just there, worrying about keeping the hairy man away from him. He took his dogs out and tied one at the back door and one at the front door. He crossed a broom and an axe handle over the window. He built a fire in the fireplace. Wiley felt a lot safer. Then he sat down next to his mama to help her think hard. After a while she said, "Wiley, go down to the pen and get that little baby pig away from the sow." Wiley did as he was told. He took the squealing pig out of the pen and back to his mama. She put the little pig in his bed. "Now, Wiley," she said, "go clear up in the hayloft and hide." So Wiley did as he was told again, and before long he heard the wind howling and the trees blowing and shaking. The dog started growling. He could see through a knothole, and the dog at the front door was staring down at the swamps, its hair standing up and its lips drawn back in a snarl too. Then an animal as big as a mule, with horns on its head, ran out of the swamp past the house. The dog jumped and jumped, but he couldn't get loose. A great big animal, like a giant dog with a long snout, came running out of the swamp and snarled at the cabin. And this time one dog broke loose and took out after the big animal, and the animal headed back to the swamp. Wiley looked out again in time to see his other dog break loose. The dog took out after another funny-looking animal. "Oh my goodness," Wiley moaned. "I just know the hairy man is coming after me." And it was true, because in no time Wiley heard something with big hooves clomping like a cow up on the roof. He heard something swear to heaven when it touched the hot chimney. The hairy man saw that there was a fire in the fireplace, so he came off that roof and dared to come up and knock on the front door. "Ms. Mama," he hollered, "I've come to get your baby boy, Wiley." "You won't get my baby," Wiley's mama hollered right back. "Give him over. If you don't, I'll sure bite you and poison you." "I'll bite you right back," Wiley's mama said. "Give him here, or I'll set your house afire with my lightning," the hairy man said. The hairy man, oh no, wait a minute. "Well, I do have my sweet cream to put it out with," Wiley's mama said. The hairy man heaved against the door and said, "Give him over to me if you don't want me to dry up your spring, make your cow come sick, and send a field of boll weevils out of the ground. They'll eat every cotton boll you've got." "Hairy man," said Wiley's mama, "you wouldn't do that. That's too mean, even for you." "Oh, I'm mighty mean," said the hairy man. "I'm the meanest I ever did see." "Well, if I give over my baby, will you go on away and leave all else here alone?" asked Wiley's mama. "That is just what I'll do," the hairy man said. And with that, Wiley's mama opened the door and let in the hairy man. "The baby's just there in the bed," Wiley's mama said. The hairy man came in, looking meaner than anything. He went over to the bed, pulled the covers off. He hollered, "There's nothing here but a suckling pig." "Well," said the mama, "I never said what kind of baby I was giving up, and that little pig did belong to me before I gave it over to you, Mr. Hairy Man." "Shoot!" hollered the hairy man. He raged and he yelled. He stomped and yammered and bared his dripping teeth. Finally, he took the pig and tore out to the swamp. He knocked down trees and let loose rocks and boulders all the way. In the morning, say there was a big wide path right through the swamp, just like a cyclone cut along through it. trees torn clear up, roots and all, and lying there on the ground. After all that, when it was most safe, Wiley came down from the loft. "Is that man gone, Mama?" he asked his good mama. "Oh yes, child," said his mama. "Old hairy man won't hurt you ever again, because we did surely fool him 3 times. Oh, Charlie, don't shit on me, Charlie. Like, seriously, you've got a whole tree you had to pick right above my head." She's a demon bird. A demon bird, I tell you. And that was the end of that. But they say that hairy man is still deep in the swamp somewhere. Say he's waiting on the right time. In this exaggerated reality tale in which facts are altered by the use of magic powers and charms, the weak triumph over the strong. The weak are again wise, but with the added benefit of conjuration. There is the added motif of the villain overcome by the hero's dogs. Another version of the hairy man tale has a widow woman being caught in the woods by old Harry. The fooling the ogre 3 times motif appears in the story as a favourable conjuring trick. A conjurer is a witch doctor, a medicine man or woman, hoodoo doctor, root doctor, or voodoo priestess who knows how to work magic through the use of a charm. Most of the charms are of African origin. Right, we'll carry on, although I'm getting rather tired, babies. Rather tired. Rather tired indeed. John and the Devil's Daughter and other tales of the supernatural. John and the Devil's Daughter. Let's talk about one time this young man John who could conquer. They call him John de Conquer. He's going out hunting for a labour, but he is hunting the devil. He expects to get some work with him, but there is no wagon ride to there. You have to find the witch lady. So he did. He found her. She had this giant bird. Call him a great big kind of eagle, not a streaky yellow running shit rainbow lorikeet, that's for sure, by the gods. "How much does it cost to ride?" John de Conquer asked the witch lady. "Cost you meat," she told him. "How much meat?" he says. And she says, "Beef in quarters, maybe 3/4 beef." "That much?" he says. And she says, "When my giant eagle lets a screechin', you give him 1/4 beef." So he did. John got on, paid for meat, and the eagle took off, rising, flapping his wings. John held on to the biggest feather he could reach. Big as a pine tree it was. Eagle just flew and flew. 10 mile, 100, 1,000 miles. That eagle let out a screechin', and John de Conquer takes up his sack of beef. He gets 1/4, tosses it to the eagle. Eagle catches it in his beak. Another 1,000 miles. Eagle lets out a mighty noise, as big as a cloud. John gets the sack, gives him another 1/4 beef. Eagle is full up. He flies and flies, maybe 2,000 miles now, and then he comes swooping low, and then he lands. John de Conquer, hanging from a pin feather, and then letting go, he is down on the ground. She is standing right there, the devil's daughter. John says to her, I'm hunting some work with the devil. Have you seen him? He's not a bit scared of her. Oh, well, she says, the devil is my daddy. He'll give you a labour, but don't you take it. Others have come for work, and he has killed them. John asks, well, why? And the devil's daughter tells him, says, because none of them could do it. They couldn't do the work he gave them. Here's the picture of the giant eagle flying with John de Conquer and his sack of beef quarters. I've got the urge to sing the McDonald's song from when I was a child. 2 all beef patties, lettuce, cheese, something, something, sesame seed and a bun. Well, it came from that country, McDonald's. It came from America. Is that so? Says John. Says, well, I have to find some work. Well, she says, if you have to then, you just do what he says. Just try to do it. Will you help me out? Asks John. He was seeing how pretty she was. I will help you, she said, and smiled at him. She saw he was some handsome. So she taken him to her father. Says to the devil, says, Daddy, I brought this one to meet you, name of John, looking for a labour. Devil says to Big John, all right, here's some work. First thing in the morning, you clear me some land, some 60 acres. Don't take all day, just half a day. Make sure the trees is cut, don't leave 'em. So Big John de Conquer is up and out the next day without any breakfast. It's way early. He wants to get a head start. He cuts 1 or 2 big trees by 10 o'clock. He's got acres to go. The devil's daughter comes out there right by where he's working. She feels sorry for him. He's way behind. He'll never make 2 days, let alone half a day. She says, give me that hatchet. He does, and she shows him a thing or two. Talking to the hatchet, says to the hatchet, let 1 tree fall, all will fall. Trim 1 limb, trim all. Burn 1 branch, burn all. The 60 acres is cut on fire and burned up in a second. Nothing is left to bother the ice smoothing its looking over the land. Then the daughter goes off. The devil comes out to see what John de Conquer has done. Did you do my work the way I said? Devil asks him. It got done, John de Conquer says. That wasn't a lie. Devil nods. Not bad, pretty good, he says. Now, in the morning, you go plough that 60 acres. You go plant it. I want some roasting ears, good and sweet, for my meal tomorrow night. John gets up way early in the morning. He hitches the horses and ploughs up straight rows, but it's after 11 and he hasn't ploughed 10 acres yet. Devil's daughter is there, brings John a jug of water for his thirst. He drinks all of it, he was that thirsty. She says to him, I'll plough it for you. She's got her eye on him, stuck on him. Well, we know how that goes, baby girls and baby boys. She talks to the plough, says, plough 1 row, plough all. Plant a kernel, plant all. Corn, grow high over my head. We got company with Kookaburra again. Mr. Kookaburra's hanging high over my head too. Hello? Hello? Decided not to scare me this time. Now, she says to John, pick yourself some good corn ears for my devil daddy. So he does. Now the daughter knows the father is going to kill John anyhow, 'cause John de Conquer is just too big for him, but John don't know nothing. We could get married, she tells John. The devil will kill us both, John tells her. Well, I got me 2 fastest horses. We'll go get them, the daughter says. When Daddy's asleep, we'll just ride off. Then we'll marry. So that was the plan, waiting until the devil is asleep. Midnight. They go out for the horses that belong to the devil. They get on and ride off. Daughter says, horses run on, 500 mile, jump it. When it's morning, they are way far away from there. But so is the, but so is the devil. He waked up, see when they went out, seen his daughter taking his favourite horses, and he has on his boots hip high. John and the devil's daughter look back, and the devil is saying to the boots, step it, I say, step it, make each step 500 mile. So the devil daddy is almost to them, and daughter don't know what to do. John de Conquer says, don't know what to do, but we better hurry up and move. Well, I thought of something now, she says. You be a fox, she says to John. This kookaburra is like listening to me reading to you, and he's completely enraptured. Cookie! Bring me some luck, Cookie. Better yet, bring me my true lover, man. Keep on dreaming, psychedelic dreamer. Okay, Cookie, I'll keep on dreaming. Why not? It's a hobby. And so, I mean, you have to laugh. You be a fox, she says to John. She turns herself into a pond of water with a duck on it, swimming. And so John de Conquer, big as anything, is an old grey fox. He's a beautiful bird though. The fox is trying to get at the duck when the devil high steps by. Devil can't see it's them, just sees a grey fox trying to snap up a duck on the pond. The devil, he went on, but his legs are worn out. His feet hurt him, and his boots are steaming. He has to get a big old animal, looks like a great big bull. Come on, says the daughter to John. He's gone back for his bull. We'll make some time up. So they hurried along. Jump 500, girl says to the horses. Jump 1,000, 500. And so the horses did. Half a day later, she looks back. Who's coming? That's who. Devil coming on, saying, you bull, jump it. She says, my daddy is coming with his bull under him. He's riding hard. John tells her, I don't know what to do about your devil daddy. So they were passing some thorny bushes, and she tells him, reach me some thorns. So John does it. He hands a whole thorny bush over to her. She takes it from him and she says, "Plant one thorn, plant all. Up thorns, 4 feet up, 10 feet up, 15, 10, no, 15 feet wide. Make it 1,000, 500 miles long." That thorn hedge went on long, about forever. The devil coming up to the thorn hedge, riding the biggest, reddest, fire bull in the hell world. The bull couldn't get through the thorns. Devil says, "I'll go back and get my hatchet. I bet I'll get through then." So he went back, and he come back, and it took him hot summers and cold winters to cut through that what his daughter had built up, the thorn hedge. And by then there wasn't a scent of nothing. No horses, no daughter, no big John to conquer. But they say John and the devil's daughter made it all right. The devil never caught them. They got married, say they farmed all around, and John and her made a good home, had lots of children, lived happily forever after. That's all. Like me in my sacred space garden with the birds, like a sunburnt potato chip, Snow White without the dwarfs. I could have been married to the dwarf from Dubai, but he didn't think to date me first, so there is that. And I kind of wasn't all that into just saying. Not because he was a dwarf per se, but he was kind of creepy and used to like to grab me on my crutch. Men who disrespect my vajayjay are not marriage kind, that's for sure. Kookaburra says, "Well, that's a tall story, but it happens to be true, Kookaburra. I was there at the time, except I didn't do it in a bogus American Southern Baptist accent. That's a whole other story we could be telling you, but we won't." Attempts to control the environment, people or situations brought the concept of witches to the black folk tale. John and the Devil's Daughter is a Märchen, a tale of the supernatural and magic in which the devil plays a main part. John must visit the witch lady in order to get work. You pooed on me again, you demon bird. I can feel it dripping all over my dress. Come on then, come on. Oh, you're a brat. Do you think Kookaburra would poo on me too if he had a chance? I don't think so. I think Kookaburra would be respectful of the Mama T since she gives him chicken and all. Demon bird. By the God. Why are all my children, including pets, always so naughty and out of order and run wild and disrespect the Mama T? It's all down my back, evil little bird. Where were we? Yes. John must visit the witch lady in order to get work. Extraordinary powers out of darkness, the witch's giant eagle, give an added dimension as an aid to the hero in getting his way. The Devil's Daughter also has power, and by marrying her, John de Conquer, the legendary black hero, adds her strength to his. De Conquer, the little-known mythical hero, is said to have come to America from Africa in a slave ship, following the wind like an albatross, which is another bird that wouldn't dare shit on me but hangs off my neck like a garrote. She's thinking about it. Variants of this tale appear worldwide, with the motif of the girl as helper in the hero's flight being most popular in the American South and in the West Indies. There are jack-tailed versions in which the hero is always known as Jack. There are also Amerindian versions. Often in the black versions, the hero is simply called John. Help from the ogre's daughter and obstacle flight motifs are quite common. There's also a herb called St. John the Conqueror as well. I can't remember what it's actually used for though, but I think it's used in banishing rituals. But I can't remember what it's used for, medicinally. The peculiar such thing. A long time ago, way off in the high piney woods, lived a fellow all alone. He lived in a one-room log cabin. There was a big old fireplace, and that is where this fellow cooked his supper to eat it right in front of the fire. One night, after the fellow had cooked and ate his supper, something crept through the cracks of the cabin logs. Kookaburra's staring right at me. That something was the most peculiar such thing the fellow ever saw, and it had a great, big, long tail. As soon as the fellow saw that something with its great, big, long tail, he reached for his axe. With a swoop and strike with it, he cut the something's tail clean off. Got what looks like a strange kind of little bee here. I don't know if you can see it. It's got little stripes on its back. Don't know if it's some kind of fly or a bee, but it's whatever it's doing. Charlie nearly ate it, and it's like staring her down. And Kookaburra's listening to me telling you the story and intrigued by Charlie and mine's intimate friendship, and it's all a bit magical today, isn't it? All the goings on with the lizards, and yesterday with the snake, and now the kookaburras. Snake won't come near me while Cookie's around, I don't think, but it might. But anyway, Australia, mate, Australia. Got to be careful out in the garden now with summer coming. Anyway, where was I? With a swoop and strike with it, he cut the something's tail clean off. The peculiar such thing crept away through the cracks between the logs and was gone. This fellow, like he had no sense, he cooked the great, big, long tail. Yes, he did. It tasted sweet, and he ate it. Goodness! And then he went to bed, and in a little while he went off to sleep. The fellow hadn't been asleep very long before he woke right up again. He heard something climbing up the side of his cabin. It sounded mighty like a cat. He could hear it scratching and tearing away, and pretty soon he heard it say, "Tally-po, tally-po, give me back my tally-po." Now the fellow living there all alone did have some dogs. Big one was best, and the other two slight ones was all right and fair. And when that fellow heard something, he called his dogs. "Yeah, dogs, come on," like that. And his dogs came flying out from under the cabin, and they chased the peculiar such thing away down a far piece. Then this fellow went on back to bed. He went to sleep. It was deep in the middle of the next night when the fellow woke up. I'm obsessed with Kookaburra, can you tell? I've got no more chicken for you. Well, I have, but it's still in the fridge. You're such a good birdie, I should give you some. but if I feed you too much, you'll forget to feed yourself properly, so I won't. A decision made. It was deep in the middle of the next night when the fellow woke up. He heard something by his front door trying to get in. He listened hard and he could hear it scratching. Woo! 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 Oh, another kookaburra above our head. My goodness, it's almost like Hitchcock the Birds. This one scared Charlie. Hello, how are you? You don't look as handsome as that one over there, but you look older somehow. Wow, it's getting very exciting here at Sacred Space. Charlie's frightened of him. Come back here, Charlie. Come back here. You stay with Mama. He's not going to dive bomb you when you're with Mama. That old bird's gone now, but we've still got that prettier one there. My goodness. My goodness, Charlie. What you doing getting all the wild birds to come and stalk Mama T? She says, you're the dumb mofo that's feeding them, Mama T. That's true, Charlie. But we've got to look after the silent ones. Where were we? He heard something by his front door trying to get in. He listened hard and he could hear it scratching and tearing away. And he heard it say, Taily-po, Taily-po, give me back my Taily-po. Fellow sat up in his bed. He called his dogs. Yeah, you best, you all right, you fair, come on in, like that. And the dogs busted around the corner, and they caught up with the peculiar such thing at the gate, and they about broke their own tails trying to catch it. This time they chased what it was down into the big hollow there. There's this poor fellow, terrified, trying to sleep. Oop. Beautifully executed drawing. You can see the terror in his face. And the fellow, well, he went back to bed and went to sleep. It was way long toward morning. The fellow, hey, don't bite his mama. No. The fellow woke up and he hears something down in the big swamp. He had to listen. He heard it say, you know you got it. I know you know. Give me back my Taily-po. That man sat right up in bed. He called his dogs. You the best. You all right. And you fair. Yeah, come on in here. Well, this time the dogs never come. Oh, it's getting very cool now. We're getting the weather change. Whew. Mama likes it when the weather changes. Well, we do need the rain. It's been terribly dry. The thing down there in the hollow must have carried them off in there. It must have eaten the first one, says, that's best. It eaten the other two, says, that ain't but all right and fair. And the fellow went back to bed. Don't see how he could sleep again, but he didn't know how bad off his dogs was by then. That weird fly creature, whatever it is, keeps buzzing around me too. Well, it was just daybreak. The fellow was awake, scared. He didn't know why, must have heard something right there with him in the room. It sounded like a cat climbing up the covers at the foot of his bed. He listened. He could hear it scratching and tearing away. The fellow looked at the foot of his bed. He's seeing 2 little pointy ears coming up over the edge of the bed. He's seeing, wait a minute, in another minute, he's seeing 2 big, scary red eyeballs looking straight at him. He can't say nothing. He can't scream. He's too scared to death. That peculiar such thing at the foot of the bed kept on creeping up. By and by it was right on top of the fellow, like Lachlan at the Brooklyn Standard. And it said in his face in a real low voice, "Tally-po, Tally-po, give me back my Tally-po." That man loses his voice, loses his power of speech, but finally he can say it. Says, "It hasn't got it. I hasn't got your Tally-po." Cookie finally left us. Don't know when he finally left us, but he's gone. But don't worry, he'll be back, Charlie. And that something that was there, that peculiar such thing, says right back, "Yes, you has." It jumped on that fellow and it was fierce. Its big teeth tore at him, made him ribbons. They say it's got its Tally-po back. Fellow's cabin fall to ruin. It rot, it crumble, and it disappear. Nothing left to it in the big woods but the place where it was. And the folks that live near that place say that deep in the night, when the moon is going down and the wind blows across the place just right, you can hear some peculiar such thing calling, "Tally-po, Tally-po," like that. And then the sound of it do just fade away with the moonlight, like it never even ever was. A tale told in moderate dialect, the peculiar such thing, is considered by some to be a fairy tale that can be traced to English fairy tales. The tale teller had fun with ghosts and didn't take them too seriously. However, this Black American version has a fright or horror tactic to it that gives more of the feeling of a ghost tale, with the thing returning for its missing part. The repetition of "Tally-po, Tally-po, give me back my Tally-po" depends upon the teller's voice for its frightening effect. Well, Charlie, you want to go inside? 'Cause I do declare that a storm is coming. What do you think, Charlie? She says, "You is the weather witch, Mama T. You gotta know your own magic." That I do, Chook, that I do. Little 8 John. Little 8 John come be a small boy, say he lived long ago. He was a handsome one, but looking good never fit to the way he acted. Little 8 John was mean some. He never paid much attention to the older folks, nor listened to the truth they knew about. His mama loved him ever so much. She'd tell him not to do something, and little 8 John would go right ahead and do something awful. Sounds like Jasmine. That was the way he was. Awful contrary. All right. Are you contrary too, Pippikin Head? Yes. 8 John, his mama saying, now don't you go stepping on no toads and frogs. Toads and frogs is bad luck. If you bother with them, you'll bring bad luck on the family. Little 8 John says, Mama, I won't step on the toad frogs. I won't step on them. But once out of sight of his good mama, little 8 John went right ahead on and found him a toad and a frog. And he squished the toad and he squashed the frog. And if he could find them, he'd squish up and squash up a whole bucket of toad frogs. His mama's cow wouldn't give the good milk one time. His baby sister had bad stomach aches. Little 8 John just laughed and laughed about it. Honey, don't sit in that chair backwards, his mama told him one time. You sitting down in every chair backwards and you gon' bring real serious bad to your family. Of course, little 8 John just sitting down backwards in every chair he could find everywhere. One day, his mama's cornbread burned up with her looking at it rise. The milk wouldn't churn no single way at all that she tried. Yeah, storm's definitely coming. Little boy, 8 John, fell to laughing and laughing so because he knew why things happened to be the way they bein'. Sweet little 8, his mama told him, don't you climb a tree on a Sunday or it will be bad luck. So bad, little 8 John, he's such an awful little boy. He went around, sneaking around and climbing trees on a Sunday. It happened soon that his papa's potatoes would not grow. His papa's mule would not plough. Little 8 John surely knew why that was, but he wasn't telling a soul. Don't count your straight white teeth, his mama told little 8 John, else there will come an awful sickness to your family. I'm thinking we better go inside actually. Charlie's getting restless. It's her restlessness that is starting to worry me. All right, I'll finish this story because it's not that long to go, because I've got to run and put all the cords away. I've got cords running right across the back lawn, and so they're a concern should it start raining. So yeah, fuck it, let's just be safety conscious and at least put the cords away for now, because when we run we're going to do the big short fat hobbit run like Hal to avoid the thunder and the lightning, Thor and Odin, Donner and Blitzen. I know, even Kookaburra's gone, hunkered down before the storm. Come on, little baby. Come on. No, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. That's it. I know, don't be so contrary-wise like little 8 John. Right, where were we? But angry little 8 John, he went right ahead and counted his teeth in his mouth, counted the uppers, counted the lowers. He counted them on Mondays and Sundays and the days in between, until he had counted them all 100 times, that child. Then his poor mama had the whooping cough and the little baby had what was the croup sickness, all because little 8 John was so terrible he brought trouble to his family. His sweet mama told him straight. "Little 8 John," she said, "don't go sleeping with your head at the foot of the bed. It will give your family the short of money blues if you do." He did it. Little 8 John did sleep with his head at the foot of the bed because he was such a rotten little child. His family went stone broke with no money nowhere hidden, and that made little 8 John giggle and grin. "Don't you dare give yourself Sunday moans for fear of old raw-haired bloody bones," his mama told him, because she loved him so. Now little 8 John knew that the old bloody bones was the raw bones of someone dead that could rise and walk and try to catch somebody. But little 8 John, he didn't care one bit. He moaned and he groaned on a Sunday and a Monday too. He was just so contrary. And sure enough, one dark, still night, it happened. Old raw-haired, bloody bones rose up and came walking. He come after bad little 8 John, and in one flicker of candlelight, that old raw-haired bloody bones turned little John into a little dark spot. There was that dark spot like a grease spot on the kitchen table. The next morning, little 8 John's mama taken a wet rag and wash off that grease-looking spot on the kitchen table. "Must have missed the grease there last supper," she said. She rubbed and rubbed at it until the dark spot was all gone. Wasn't not a streak of it left. And that was the end of little 8 John. What happens to all little children who never mind? This is a moral tale told particularly to children so they will be good. At other times, it was meant to be told as frightening entertainment. It can be placed historically with the slavery folk rhyme whispered to plantation slave children as they went to bed. "Don't talk, go to sleep. Eyes shut and don't you peep. Keep still or he just moans. Raw head and bloody bones." Right, got a few stories to go, quite a few stories to go. I reckon approximately another 15 minutes to half an hour worth of stories. But we're going to go inside, people of Earth, because I decided that's why. And got to go when Mama T decides. Got to go with the flow, babies. Yes. Might not rain for a while yet, but I just, I can hear distant rumbling and I got a feeling. In my waters. In my waters. Right. I think the most lovely thing of that whole storytelling was that kookaburra sitting listening in and smiling as if it understood every word I was reading, and just enjoying my company. And you know what? That made my day. That made my day. You see, I'm definitely part fairy now. I don't live in your world, you live in mine. Unfortunately, I don't want the handicap of being a fairy and having vampires like Lachlan practically inhaling me, because that was weird and inappropriate and gross. But anyway, it happens a lot in recent months, and I think it's because of my vaccinated status. I must be giving off some different kind of pheromones, as in Still human pheromones, am I right? It's a bit confronting and scary if the truth be told. So, but anywho, we shall see what happens when I go out this Friday night. Hopefully things will have improved slightly, or I'll just have to up the protection when I go out. It's getting to the stage I'm even considering making holy water for a Jewish girl. That's intense, people, but I've got some black salt I made here about 2 years ago during the height of the COVIDian madness. Haven't used it yet, so I'm thinking of putting that in a bit of a spritzer with some rose water, and I'll pray over it and maybe throw some frankincense in it so it's nice and fragrant as well. And any motherfucker comes near me that I've told to back off that's creepy, I'm just going to spritz them with holy water. Watch them go. Actually, wouldn't that be funny if that actually happened, if they actually recoiled from it? Well, it wouldn't be funny because it would confirm my suspicions of what's been going on lately, actually, if the truth be known. It's been a bit confronting. Anyway, we carry on with Jack and the devil. One time, there was a wicked man named Jack. He treated his wife like a dog. He treated his children like dirt. He had a habit of drinking whiskey from morning till night. That stuff burned him up inside himself, and that was when the devil come to get him. Jack saw that devil standing there. I love these earrings I made. These were in my market stock, well, my shop stock that I tried to sell. No one bought them, and I'm glad no one bought them now because I'm madly in love with them. Madly in love with them. So I'm glad. See, things are meant to happen the way they happen. Right, where were we? Jack saw that devil standing there. He was scared to death, and he moaned and fell down. Jack begged the devil to just let him off this time. Just this time. Let him stay a little longer on the earth. But the devil said to him, Jack, I can't wait for you any longer. My wife Abby is expecting you. Wonder why the devil has a wife named Abby. Short for Abigail, am I right? Oh well, I had a demon for a friend named Abigail too. Just saying. So the devil, he starts out for his home, and Jack, he had to follow until they come upon a drinking place. Mr. Devil, says Jack, do you want a drink? The devil says, well, guess I do want one. But you see, Jack, I don't have the change. We never keep no change down there at my home place. Well, Mr. Devil, says Jack, tell you what I'll do for you. I got 10 cents in my pocket. If you'll change yourself into another 10 cents, we can get 2 drinks. Then you can change yourself back to a devil again. Well, the devil thought that was fair. He changed himself into 10 cents. Jack picked him up, but he didn't go to that drinking place. No, sir. Jack put that 10 cents in his pocketbook. Pocketbook was a little change purse with a cross for its clasp. He shut that up tight, and the devil couldn't get out of it, couldn't get by that clasp in the shape of a cross. Well, the devil begged and cussed and carried on, but Jack paid him no mind. He went on toward home. The devil called to him, says, Jack, if you let me out, I'll let you stay free for a whole year. Let me go. please, Jack, 'cause my wife, Abby, is too little to keep the fires high. All will go black and cold down there if I don't hurry and see to the home place." Jack thought about it this way. He says to himself, I might let him go, 'cause in a year I could repent and get my faith in the church. I could get rid of him through religion. How many have tried that, I wonder? So Jack said, "Mr. Devil, I'll let you out if you swear you won't come after me for 12 whole months." "I promise, Jack," came the muffled voice of the devil from inside the pocket book. So Jack undid the cross that was a clasp, and the devil was gone. Jack never saw him go at all. "Now I will repent," he says to himself, "and I don't have to hurry. I got me 12 free months before the devil can take me. The last 3 of them months is plenty of time to get my religion good. Where's that 10 cent I had? Oh, here it is. I'm gonna get me a drink too. Matter of fact, I could do with a drinky poos right now." After 6 long months were gone, Jack decided that the last one of the 12 months would be long enough for him to repent. He would have himself a drinking spree, and the last 10 days of the month would be just time for him to repent. When the last week come, Jack had drunk so much he was lying in the bed all the time, seeing things that were not there. But then the devil was right there, for it was after the last day of the year that Jack had for his freedom. And the devil had come for him for true. And poor Jack, he had to get up and follow the devil on out of there. After a long time of going, the devil and Jack pass a tree full of big, sweet apples. "Do you want some apples, Mr. Devil?" Jack asked him. "Well, if you want some, you can get you some," the devil tells Jack. He stopped to look up at the tree. "How you expect a man sick as me to climb a tree?" Jack says. "Here, you catch hold of that bough there," he told the devil, "and I'll push you on up to the fork in the tree, and you can get all the apples." So the devil starts up, and Jack pushes him until he is up there. And the devil starts to touch and squeeze at the apples to find the best ones. Now, while the devil was busy with the apples, Jack whips his knife out and cuts a big cross right there in the bark below where the devil is working. The devil hollers out, "Allah, something almost hit me. What you doing down there, Jack? If you messing around, I'll cut your heart out." But the devil couldn't get out of the tree because the cross was there. Jack sat himself down right by the tree and listened to the devil raging and cussing a blue streak. So Jack kept the devil there all that night and into the next morning, when the devil says to him, "Jack, let me down here and I'll give you another year." You gimme nothing, Jack told him, and he stretched out on the grass. Long about sunset, the devil says, Jack, cut out that cross from there so I can get down, and I'll give you 10 years. No, sir, Mr. Devil, Jack says. I won't let you down until you swear you will leave me alone forever. Well, the devil found out that Jack was tough. He was hard and cold as ice. So he agreed to leave Jack alone forever too. Jack cut out the cross off that apple tree, and the devil walked away without another word. After that, Jack never thought a minute about repenting or being good or getting religion. He wasn't afraid of the devil at all no more. He lived a long time. But one dark day, his old body gave out on him. He had to die, and he did. He went to the gate of heaven, asking to get in. The angels there just shook their heads at him. So then Jack went off to the gate of hell. He heard the devil hollering at his little imps. Shut that gate fast as you can. Don't let that man in here. He treated me worse than awful, twice times. Tell him to go on back where he came from. Jack calls to him, But Mr. Devil, how will I find my way in the dark? Will you give me a lantern? Well, here then, the devil say, and he take a chunk of red-hot burning coals out of his fire. Take this on with you, Jack, he says, and don't you ever come back here no more, too. Hit the road, Jack, don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, don't you come back no more. Well, now we know where that song line comes from. Jack, he took the fire, but he got himself lost. They say he's still wandering in the dark. Some say you can see his little light a-bobbing this away and that away when the night is coldest and the chill is deepest. This tale is one of many devil tales about individuals who associate with the devil for personal gain or pleasure, only to end up worse off than when they started. In the end, Jack is too much for even the devil. He is not wanted in heaven or hell, and he must wander the earth with his little light. But of course, he is dead, and the little light, often called Will-o'-the-Wisp, represents the light of his soul. Stories of marsh light or will-o'-the-wisp light, or here in Australia we have the min-min lights, are many and varied. We're going to go because I am really thirsty, people of Earth. I'm going to go and get a glass of water because Mama T needs some water for the throat. You having fun in there, Charlie? She says, Mama, I was liking it more in the garden. All right, let me get a glass out. I'm going to get cold water, nice cold water from my fridge. And I got a craving for chocolate, but damn it, I ate all my chocolate and I have to go to the shops and buy more chocolate, and I just plain don't wanna go to the shops. This is how off my head I am. I even got food delivered by Uber Eats yesterday to avoid going to the shops. That's not good, people of Earth. Had to pay $10 extra for delivery and service fees. But I paid that $10 to avoid going to the shops. Naughty, 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 Mama T. Wasting money on naughtiness. Got plenty of petrol in the car, so it's not that I don't have petrol. It's just plain didn't want to. I really do feel like some chocolate now, and I need to buy eggs as well. So I do need to go to the shop sometime soon. That probably won't happen today. Maybe tomorrow if I feel like it. By the gods. I'm in a very strange headspace lately. It's not like me to be this bad that I point blank refuse to go to the shops. I don't know what that's about. Really don't. But anyway, making good use of my time, being a housebound little non-housefrau, living my best life. And yes, just the skies are looking very interesting indeed. So temperatures dropped, so I think rain is on its way. Better wait till Martin comes. Now here's a story I heard tell about John, and he was a man travelling through one end of this county to the other. One time he gets caught after dark, had no place to stay nearby. There was a tumble-down plantation house on the hill next to a lone pine tree. Real old abandoned mansion. Both house and tree were twisted. Seemed to John he'd heard the place was haunted. John didn't worry much about haunts. He knew himself to be a good man, and he knew his prayers. Expect I better take shelter up there in the big house, he thought. Oh, by the way, I'm pretty upset. My TV died last night. It's got this little flashing light that I can usually reset things from time to time, but it won't reset. So no TV, no more TV. Have to buy a new TV. I don't have money for that. So I guess I'll be reading a lot more stories to you people of Earth, because I've got no TV now to entertain myself with. By the gods. It's always something with me. Anyway, I'll just have to adapt and get used to it. The sky do look cloudy. Think it might rain before morning. Situation the same here. So John walked over the weedy ground past the tree. He heard that skinny pine moan. Then it meowed at him. John looked straight ahead. If there were haunts in the tree, they wasn't going to catch him looking. He went ahead on inside the old plantation house. All old houses like that whisper, empty rooms, and this moaned as well. Wind through the cracks. John paid no mind to the forlorn sounds. He found plenty of dry wood on the hearth next to the fireplace, and soon he had a cracking, warm fire going too. That's the best fire I ever made, if I do say so myself, he spoke out loud to keep himself company. John found a broken down chair. It would hold his weight a minute, so he sat down in it. And after a time, he was most comfortable there in the empty, whispering, moaning plantation house. He was safe against any storm. He folded his hands and he said his prayers over to himself for good measure. Shortly, something come up behind John. Then it walked on by him. It was a shiny black cat walking in out of the rain. It was blacker than night and blacker than coal too, that black cat was, and it eased over to the fireplace. And it sat right down in the fire, picked up a red hot coal in its paws and stuck out its tongue and licked at the coal. Just like licking some milk, it did too lick that red hot coal. John, not saying a word, not paying that cat any mind at all. He had cats at home, but none lived in his house, nor sat down in a blazing fire and licked up a hot coal. He said his prayers like he was supposed to, but a little faster now. As quick as a crack of the fire, a long shadow fell over John. It walked around him. The shadow turned out to be a cat too, only this cat was no kind of house cat. This cat was as big as a hunting dog, black as coal, and his collar fur standing up on his shoulders. The great big cat sat down in the fire and picked up a live red coal, and he dusts his cheeks with it like that burning coal, just a powder puff. He powders his nose with it, and as proper as you please. Then that big, ugly cat turned to the first one. He's smacking his lips. The big cat says, "Are we ready?" And the regular cat says, "We'd better wait till Martin comes." Well, poor John moves himself then, has to. But the broken down chair is weak. Its seat falls in. John is stuck in the chair. Can't pull himself out without making a lot of noise. Something tells him to keep still and say his prayers. He says them. He says them as fast as he can, hardly making a sound. And the big hunting dog cat and the little regular cat get on up out of the burning fire. They stand on the hearth and pat out the smoke, shake out the ashes, and come on over, sit right down on each side of John. Poor John stays as still and as twisted up as that haunted tree outside, saying his prayers clear through, whispering as fast as he can go and not moving his mouth at all. The next minute there come walking in behind him and around a cat 12 times blacker than the other two and as big as a timber wolf. Bigger. This has to be Martin, John is thinking, but he won't say a sound. Too scared. That timber cat walks over and sits down in the fire, just like the other cats did. And he picks up this live coal and he puts it right on his slanted green eyes. He dusts his eyeballs with it and he turns around to the other cats sitting on each side of John. The timber cat says to the other cat, showing his teeth, "What you want to do with him there?" and looks straight dead at John too. And the other cats say, right back all in one meow, "We better wait till Martin comes." With that, John gives a great heave up. The chair comes up with him, but at least he was up. and he runs out the wide open front door. He's calling as he goes out flying, "Mr. Katz, you tell Martin I was here, but I couldn't wait on him, and now I'm gone." And he was long gone and never seen in that county since. And here he is, perched inside the broken chair. This is a comic scare tale, usually told about a preacher. It is an old story, widely known in America among all peoples, and was told for many years on the stage by comedian Bert Williams. The theme of the person who accepts a dare or decides to stay in a haunted place is a favourite of the early ghost tale teller. The animals involved are sometimes monkeys, a gorilla, cats, a timber wolf, a mule. My ear's starting to hurt from the pressure. A tiger. Hang on a sec. Oh, it hurts. Or a calf, among others. The huge animal or being for whom the preacher or salesman or simply I is too terrified to wait is known in versions of the tale as Emmett, Rufus, John, Martin, Caleb, Whalem Balaam, and Willie, or whatever other name the teller cares to use. Right. We're in the last section of this book now. Carrying the running aways, and other slave tales of freedom. Carrying the running aways. Never had any idea of carrying the runaway slaves over the river, even though I was right there on the plantation, right by that big river. It never got in my mind to do something like that. But one night, the woman whose house I had gone courting to said she knew a pretty girl wanted to cross the river, and would I take her? Well, I met the girl, and she was awful pretty. And soon the woman was telling me how to get across, how to go, and when to leave. Well, I had to think about it. But each day, that girl or the woman would come around, ask me how would I row the girl across the river to a place called Ripley. Well, I finally said I would, and one night I went over to the woman's house. My owner trusted me and let me come and go as I pleased, long as I didn't try to read or write anything, for writing and reading was forbidden to slaves. Now I had heard about the other side of the river from the other slaves, but I thought it was just like the side where we lived on the plantation. I thought there were slaves and masters over there too, and overseers and rawhide whips they used on us. That's why I was so scared. I thought I'd land the girl over there and some overseer didn't know us would beat us for being out at night. They could do that, you know. Well, I did it. Oh, it was a long rowing time in the cold with me worrying. But pretty soon I see a light way up high. Then I remembered the woman told me to watch for a light, told me to row to the light which is what I did. And when I got to it, there were two men. They reached down and grabbed the girl. Then one of the men took me by the arm, said, "You about hungry?" And if he hadn't been holding me, I would have fell out of that rowboat. Well, that was my first trip. I was scared for a long time after that. But pretty soon I got over it as other folks asked me to take them across the river. 2 and 3 at a time I'd take them. I got used to making 3 or 4 trips every month. Now it was funny. I never saw my passengers after that first girl, because I took them on the nights when the moon was not showing, it was cloudy, and I always met them in the open or in a house with no light. So I never saw them, couldn't recognize them, and couldn't describe them. But I would say to them, "What you say?" And they would say the password, sounded like Manare. Seemed the word came from the Bible somewhere, but I don't know. And they would have to say that word before I took them across. Well, there in Ripley was a man named Mr. Rankins. The rest was John, I think. He had a station there for escaping slaves. Ohio was a free state, I found out. So once they got across, Mr. Rankins would see to them. We went at night so we could continue back for more, and to be sure no slave catchers would follow us there. Mr. Rankins had a big light about 30 feet high up, and it burned all night. It meant freedom for slaves if they could get to that bright flame. I worked hard and almost got caught. I'd been rowing fugitives for almost 4 years. It was in 1863, and it was a night I carried 12 runaways across the river to Mr. Rankins. I stepped out of the boat back in Kentucky, and they were after me. Don't know how they found out, but the slave catchers, didn't know them, were on my trail. I ran away from the plantation and all who I knew there. I lived in the fields and in the woods, even in caves. Sometimes I slept in the tree branches or in a hay pile. I couldn't get across the river now. It was watched so closely. Finally, I did get across. Late one night, me and my wife went. I had gone back to the plantation to get her. Mr. Rankins had him a bell by this time, along with the light. We were rowing and rowing. We could see the light and hear that bell, but it seemed we weren't getting any closer. It took forever, it seemed. That was because we were so scared and it was so dark, and we knew we could get caught and never get gone. Well, we did get there. We pulled up there and went on to freedom. It was only a few months before all the slaves were freed. We didn't stay on at Ripley. We went on to Detroit because I wasn't taking any chances. I have children and grandchildren now. Well, you know, the bigger ones don't care so much to hear about those times. But the little ones, well, they never get tired of hearing how their grandpa brought emancipation to loads of slaves he could touch and feel in the dark, but never ever see. Carrying the Runaways is a reality tale of freedom, a true slave narrative. The former slave who first told the tale was an actual person, Arnold Gragston, a slave in Kentucky. His story of rowing runaways across the Ohio River represents thousands of such stories of escape to freedom. The abolitionist who helped the runaways once they were across the river was John Rankin, a Presbyterian minister and a Southerner who lived in Ripley, Ohio. The town is still there, situated on the Great River. A rickety wood staircase leads up Liberty Hill from Ohio River bottomlands to the underground station house of the Rankin family. From 1825 to 1865, more than 2,000 slaves were sheltered at the house and guided on by the family. Today, the Rankin House is a state memorial open to the public from April through October. Another fugitive, Levi Perry, born a slave, crossed the Ohio River into freedom with his mother about 1854. They were rescued by John Rankin and were taken in and taken care of at the house with the light. Years later, every 6 months or so, Levi Perry would settle his 10 children around him and he would begin, "Now listen, children, I want to tell you about slavery and how my mother and I ran away from it, so you'll know and never let it happen to you." This tale was told to me recently by my mother, Etta Bell Perry Hamilton, who is 92 years old and Levi Perry's oldest daughter, Virginia Hamilton. Oh, bless. That's beautiful that they survived and got their freedom. How Nehemiah got free. In slavery time, there was smart slaves, and they did most what they wanted to do by using just their wits. Hanging around the big house, they kept the slave owners laughing. They had to bow and scrape some, but they often was able to draw the least hard tasks. Nehemiah was the one who believed that if he must be a slave, he'd best be a smart one. No one who calling himself master of Nehemiah had ever been able to make him work hard for nothing. Nehemiah would always have a funny lie to tell, or he made some laughing remark whenever the so-called master had a question or a scolding. Nehemiah was always being moved from one plantation to another, for as soon as a slave owner realized Nehemiah was outwitting him, he sold Nehemiah as quick as he could to some other slaveholder. One day, the man known as the most cruel slave owner in that part of the state heard about Nehemiah. "Oh, I bet I can make that slave do what I tell him to," the slave owner said, and he went to Nehemiah's owner and bargained for him. Nehemiah's new owner was Mr. Wharton, and he told Nehemiah, "I've bought you. Now tomorrow you going to work for me over there at my plantation, and you are going to pick 400 pounds of cotton a day." "Well, Mass, sir," Nehemiah says, "that's all right, far as it goes, but if I make you laugh, will you let me off for tomorrow?" "Well," said Wharton, who had never been known to laugh, "if you make me laugh, I won't only let you off for tomorrow, but I'll give you your freedom right then and there." "Well, I declare, Massa, you sure a good-looking man," says Nehemiah. "I'm sorry I can't say the same about you, Nehemiah," answered the slave owner. "Oh yes, Mass, you could," Nehemiah said, laughing. "You could if you told as big a lie as I just did." Wharton threw back his head and laughed. It was a long, loud bellow. He had laughed before he thought, but true is true and facts is facts, and Nehemiah got his freedom. Folk tales about how slaves got their freedom were told in one form or another and are still told in black families all over this country. They are told in the spirit of a 19th of June celebration, that is, Juneteenth, the day on which black people in the South remember emancipation and give special thanks to freedom from slavery. Slaves did not learn about emancipation all at once together. Isolated and scattered all over the South, they heard the extraordinary news at separate times and in different months. But June 19th became the day of freedom for all, Juneteenth. The significance of Juneteenth is very great and gives special meaning to all running away, enduring slavery, and end of slavery tales. The Talking Cooter. Say that Jim was a dreamer. He hoped someday to be a free man, and for now, he was a slave. Not far from the big house of the slave owner was a pond. Jim liked to sit beside it and think. Someone had told him that animals used to talk. And Jim dreamed that someday some animal would talk to him and tell him how to get his freedom. One day, while Jim was right there by the pond, he spied a big cooter mud turtle at the edge of the water. Jim picked up a pebble, threw it at the cooter, striking him on his shell. The cooter moved aside a little, stuck his head up and said, "Don't do that again. Let's be friends. Would you like to hear me play my fiddle?" Jim was shocked when the cooter spoke to him. He was most near to falling over when the cooter took a teeny fiddle from under a stone and commenced to play it. Jim sat there listening and thought he just was dreaming. When he came out of his trance, the cooter had gone. Then every day Jim walked over to the pond when his tasks were done, and each day the cooter would greet him with, "Good morning, friend. Do you want to hear me play again?" And Jim had found his voice and his wits enough to say, "Yes, indeedy I do. Good morning to you, Brew Cooter." And then the cooter played his fiddle and he sang, "Jim, you talk too much. Run along and find you freedom place." Now Jim was a dreamer, but he was a thinker too. And he thought one day that if he let his owner meet the cooter, he might get his freedom that way. After all, a talking cooter was a wonderful thing to hear. So Jim went on back to the plantation. He found the slave owner and he says, "Mass, I want to tell you about this cooter down there at the pond." "Well, what about it?" said the slave owner. "Mass," says Jim, "that cooter can talk, and he don't just talk. He taken out his fiddle and he play on it, pretty as you please." "Oh, get out," said the slave owner. "You know that's not true." "'Tis too true," said Jim, as calm as he could. "He speak to me and play and sing for me nearly every day now." The slave owner had to laugh. "Well then, Jim," he said, "if it's true, I'll give you your freedom. But if it's not true, I'm going to give you the worst whipping you ever had in your life." "That's all right, Mass. I'll show you," said Jim. "I'll take you down there and you'll see for yourself." So that's what Jim did. He took the slave owner down to the pond. When they got there was no cooter to be seen. "Huh!" grunted the slave owner. He had his whip in his hand and he snaked it good and hard, making a big cracking sound. "Good morning," Jim said, loud but not too loud. There was no answer. "Good morning to ya, cooter," Jim said, a bit louder this time. No answer again. "Well, I knew it," said the slave owner. "Dang you, Jim, you fooled with me one time too many." And he raised his whip to thrash Jim as hard as he could. Just then he heard music, a fiddle playing nearby. And right there, the cooter came climbing out of the pond. He walked on his back legs, and he had that fiddle tucked up under his chin like any old fiddler. He was playing away on it too. "Good morning," he said, and kept on playing. Then he commenced to sing. "Jim, I told you, you talk too much. Run along, find you freedom place." Maybe Jim did talk too much, but that was how he got his freedom. The greatest dream or wish of the slave in the Southland was for freedom. Some of the slave tales show the slave indulging in a wish-fulfilling fantasy of gaining power over the owner and escaping from him. But it was rare that a slave won or was given freedom. The talking cooter is one of many talking animal tales with the motif of the animal refuses to talk on demand. The talking animal is variously a talking turtle or tortoise or a talking mule. There are other variants, African versions, with talking skulls and bones, as we had the talking skull in the story of the last unicorn. The riddle tale of freedom. Now here it is. Long time ago there was a slave and a slave owner. They got along. They liked to joke back and forth sometimes. Those two would exchange jokes and riddles. The slave man say, "Mass, you give me a riddle today and I figured it out. Now tomorrow I'll give you one." "All right," the slave owner says, "you bring me one in the morning." "But if you can't figure it," said the slave, "you give me my freedom in the morning too." So that was the deal. The morning come, the slave goes to the owner's place. Owner says, "Come on in, I heard you coming. Come on in. You got that riddle with you said you'd bring me?" "Sure do," said the slave. His old dog had died the night before. The dog's name was Love. The slave took a piece of love's skin and wrapped it around his right hand. So the slave says, I've got you a riddle right here. Well, go ahead, said the owner. Tell it to me. Well then, here, said the slave, and he told the riddle like this. Love I see, love I stand, love I holds in my right hand. Now what is the answer, Mass? Asked the slave. The slave owner thought a long time. He tried to guess the riddle, but he just couldn't figure it out. Well, I give up, the slave owner said. So I have to give you your freedom because I said I would if I couldn't guess. But first, tell me what the answer is. Well, here it is, said the slave. See, wrapped around my right hand? That's my dead dog's skin, and his name was Love. Well, I was standing right here with it, and I had it in my hand, just seeing it. So that's why I tell the riddle. Love I see, love I stand, love I holds in my right hand. That's how the riddle gave the slave his freedom. Telling riddles was one of the favourite pastimes of slaves. It was second only to telling animal tales. Riddle telling carried on into the Reconstruction period after emancipation. It became a wish-telling about freedom. When one solved the riddle, one would be free. Here is a typical slave riddle. Was 12 pair hanging high and 12 pair hanging low? 12 king come riding by, each he took a pair, and how many leave hanging there? Answer. Begin with, there were 24 pairs. A man called each took one pair. That left 23 pairs hanging there. That's a tricky one. I would not have got that. I'm not very good at riddles. I'm too concrete, as my former friend Abigail, the forensic psych nurse, used to throw in my face regularly. I don't do abstractions. I stick to the facts. The truth is the truth. No matter how many times you cut and splice it. But don't talk to me in abstractions, and I won't dissemble and get confused and not know what the hell you're talking about, babies. I've always been that way. It's because I've got brain damage from too many near deaths as a child. Anyway. That sun is just slapping me in the eye. Slapping me in the eye, it is. Whew. The most useful slave. Say that John was the most useful slave on the plantation. The slave owner, never having to worry about his slaves trying to run away or to start in a bad trouble. He had a way of knowing exactly what was going on around the plantation, and the way he knew was because of John. Now John knew how to prophesy for the slave owner, who was Mass Tom. He could tell you what was going to happen, and he was never wrong once in his predictions. The slave owner believed John was a fortune teller with supernatural power, for John knew exactly what the slave owner wanted done and exactly when he wanted it done as well. The truth was that John collected all he needed to know from eavesdropping, by listening in on the slave owner and his wife while they ate their supper. One day the owner, Tom, was talking to some other planters, and he found out that they were worried about unrest among the slaves. After listening a while, Tom said he never had to worry about anything because he was a real smart slave who could prophesy. There ain't a slave that smart that can foretell, one of the planters said. Well, I bet you money there is, Tom said. You that sure? The planter asked, and Tom said he was. You all put down your money, he told them, and come over to my house next Saturday, and you see for yourselves. Well, all the slave owners put their money down. It came to thousands and thousands of dollars too. They all accepted slave owner Tom's invitation. Well, the day came. Wasn't a bad day at all. And all the owners came, and they were eager to see the slave that was so smart. Someone had a place for John to stand in front of the place. One of the planters put a big box. There was something inside it. Nobody knew but the one had put it there what it was. When everything seemed to be ready and everybody had gathered around and quieted down, Mass Tom brought John out, blindfolded, and had him stand there. One of the planters, name of Mass Carter, said to John, "We go and see what we see this day, and I got money down on you." "Well, what for?" blindfolded John says. "Well, you must know," says the owner Carter. "You the one knows everything." Just then, Mass Tom says, "Now, neighbours, Uncle John here will tell us what is hidden in that big box." Now you know what was in the big box was a little smaller box, so John couldn't hear what was going on inside. Well, John stood there for a long, long time, trying to hear at least some scratching from the wood, from the box rather, but he couldn't. But he worked his hands like he's swatting the air and getting something in his head that way. He looked to be tranced some way. John thought and he thought. The more he had to stand there blindfolded, the more he knew he didn't know what was in the big box. He had no idea at all what was in the little smaller box, because he didn't even know it was there. It's no use, John thought. Guess what I will is in that box. I'll be wrong. "In the box! In the box!" he said out loud. Didn't know he'd said it, but it caused the planters there to get to murmuring, thinking something was about to happen. He'd said box twice, and that made the owner, Carter, take a listen. And John was figuring he might as well give it up. He scratched his head and shifted his feet around. "Well, Mass Tom," he said finally, "this old raccoon, he run a long time, but they caught him at last." When John said that, his owner, Tom, lifted the box and the smaller box. Lo and behold, a raccoon jumped out to the ground. "Well, thank you, Uncle John," says his owner. He couldn't have been happier. See, John was a prophet, and Mass Tom was a whole bunch richer. John didn't get his freedom in this tale, but he will be valued so long as he can continue as the prophet. This is the best known of the Old Master and John or Jack, or Old Master and the Slave tales, of which there are many. Old Master, sometimes called Mass, and John tales are found in the southern United States and among East Africans and Haitians, Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, and many other Caribbean peoples. The tales are a cycle narrative, tales told one after the other over a period of time, sometimes accompanied by the banjo. They reveal the slave John rather than Brew Rabbit as the plantation slave's trickster hero. John and the owner seem to have an almost friendly relationship. In some of the other John tales, Old Mass is referred to as Boss, which identifies those tales as taking place after slavery and signals the former slave's uneasy relationship with his former owner. Which, would have been a really difficult transition period, for slaves to trust a former owner, and a former owner to now have to pay his workers that he used to keep as slaves, I guess. Would have been really quite uncomfortable. Anyway. The people could fly. They say the people could fly. Say that long ago in Africa, some of the people knew magic. And they would walk up on the air like climbing up on a gate. And they flew like blackbirds over the fields, black shiny wings flapping against the blue up there. Then many of the people were captured for slavery. The ones that could fly shed their wings. They couldn't take their wings across the water on the slave ships. Too crowded, don't you know? Excuse me. The folks were full of misery then, got sick with the up and down of the sea, so they forgot about flying when they could no longer breathe the sweet scent of Africa. Say the people who could fly kept their power although they shed their wings. They kept their secret magic in the land of slavery. They looked the same as the other people from Africa who had been coming over, who had dark skin. Say you couldn't tell any more one who could fly from one who couldn't. One such who could was an old man, call him Toby. And standing tall, yet afraid, was a young woman who once had wings. Call her Sarah. Now Sarah carried a babe tied to her back. She trembled to be so hard-worked and scorned. The slaves laboured in the fields from sun up to sundown, the owner of the slaves calling himself their master, saying he was a hard lump of clay, a hard glinty coal. A hard rock pile wouldn't be moved. His overseer on horseback pointed out the slaves who were slowing down, so the one called driver cracked his whip over the slow ones to make them move faster. That whip was a slice open cut of pain, so they did move faster. Had to. Sarah hoed and chopped the row as the babe on her back slept. Say the child grew hungry. That babe started up bawling too loud. Sarah couldn't stop to feed it. Couldn't stop To soothe and quiet it down, she let it cry. She didn't want to. She had no heart to croon to it. "Keep that thing quiet," called the overseer. He pointed his finger at the babe. The woman scrunched low. The driver cracked his whip across the baby anyhow. The babe hollered like any hurt child, and the woman fell to the earth. The old man that was there, Toby, came and helped her to her feet. "I must go soon," she told him. "Soon," he said. Sarah couldn't stand up straight any longer. She was too weak. The sun burned her face. The babe cried and cried. "Pity me, oh pity me," say it sounded like. Sarah was so sad and starving, she sat down in the row. "Get up, you black cow," called the overseer. He pointed his hand, and the driver's whip snarled around Sarah's legs. Her sack dress tore into rags. Her legs bled into the earth. She couldn't get up. Toby was there where there was no one to help her and the babe. "Now, before it's too late," panted Sarah. "Now, father." "Yes, daughter, the time has come," Toby answered. "Go as you know how to go." He raised his arms, holding them out to her. "Kum yali kum bubatumbe," and more magic words said so quickly they sounded like whispers and sighs. The young woman lifted one foot in the air, then the other. She flew clumsily at first, with the child now held tightly in her arms. Then she felt the magic, the African mystery. So she rose just as free as a bird, as light as a feather. The overseer rode after her, hollering. Sarah flew over the fences. She flew over the woods. Tall trees could not snag her, nor could the overseer. She flew like an eagle now until she was gone from sight. No one dared speak about it. Couldn't believe it, but it was, because they that was there saw that it was. Say the next day was dead hot in the fields. A young man-slave fell from the heat. The driver come and whipped him. Toby come over and spoke words to the fallen one, the words of ancient Africa, once heard are never remembered completely. The young man forgot them as soon as he heard them. They went way inside him. He got up and rolled over on the air. He rode it a while and he flew away. Another and another fell from the heat. Toby was there. He cried out to the fallen and reached his arms out to them. Kum kunkayale kum tombe, whispers and sighs. They too rose on the air, they rode the hot breezes. The ones flying were black and shining sticks, wheeling above the head of the overseer. They crossed the rows, the fields, the fences, the streams, and were away. "Seize the old man," cried the overseer. I heard him say the magic words. "Seize him." The one calling him master come running. The driver got his whip ready to curl around old Toby and tie him up. The slave owner took his hip gun from its place. He meant to kill old black Toby. But Toby just laughed. Say he threw back his head and said, "Hee hee, don't you know who I am? Don't you know some of us in this field?" He said it to their faces. "We are ones who fly." And he sighed the ancient words that were a dark promise. He said them all around to the others in the field under the whip. Buba Yali, Buba Tombe. There was a great outcrying. The bent backs straightened up. Old and young, who were called slaves and could fly, joined hands. Say like they would ring sing, but they didn't shuffle in a circle. They didn't sing. They rose on the air. They flew in a flock that was black against the heavenly blue. Black crows or black shadows, it didn't matter. They went so high. Way above the plantation, way over the slavery land. Say they flew away to freedom. And the old man, old Toby, flew behind them, taking care of them. He wasn't crying, he wasn't laughing, he was the seer. His gaze fell on the plantation where the slaves who could not fly waited. "Take us with you," their looks spoke it, but they were afraid to shout it. Toby couldn't take them with him. Hadn't the time to teach them to fly. They must wait for a chance to run. "Goodbye," the old man called Toby spoke to them poor souls, and he was flying gone. So they say, the overseer told it. The one called master said it was a lie, a trick of the light. The driver kept his mouth shut. The slaves who could not fly told about the people who could fly to their children when they were free. When they sat close before the fire in the free land, they told it. They did so love firelight and freedom and talon. They say that the children of the ones who could not fly told their children, and now me, I have told it to you. The People Could Fly is one of the most extraordinary, moving tales in black folklore. It almost makes us believe that the people could fly. There are numerous separate accounts of flying Africans and slaves in the black folktale literature. Such accounts are often combined with tales of slaves disappearing. A plausible explanation might be that the slaves running away from slavery, slipping away while in the fields or under cover of darkness. In code language murmured from one slave to another, "Come fly away," might have been the words used. Another explanation is the wish fulfillment motif. The magic hoe variant is often combined with the flying African tale. A magic hoe is left still hoeing in an empty field after all the slaves have flown away. Magic with the hoe and other farm tools and the power of disappearing are often attributed to Gullah Angolan African slaves. Angolan slaves were thought by other slaves to have exceptional powers. The People Could Fly is a detailed fantasy tale of suffering, of magic power exerted against the so-called master and his underlings. Finally, it is a powerful testament to the millions of slaves who never had the opportunity to fly away. They remained slaves, as did their children. The People Could Fly was first told and retold by those who had only their imaginations to set them free. And there's quite an extensive bibliography, which I won't read to you because you could probably research it for yourself. Actually, no, that's selfish of me. You might want to explore deeper into African American stories of slavery and redemption. So here we go. Folktales are told in many ways by a number of storytellers. Other versions can be found in some of the books listed below. Abraham's Roger, Deep Down in the Jungle, Negro Narrative Folklore from the Streets of Philadelphia, Aswell James R. et al., Tennessee Writers Project, Beckwith, Martha Warren Beckwith, Black Roadways, John Bennett, The Doctor to the Dead, Grotesque Legends and Folktales of Old Charleston. B. A. Botkin, Lay My Burden Down, A Folk History of Slavery, A Treasury of American Folklore, A Treasury of Southern Folklore, all published between 1945 and 1949. John Mason Brewer, Worser Days and Better Times, Tales of the Wise and Foolish, the Folklore of the North Carolina Negro. John Harrington Cox, Negro Tales from West Virginia, in the Journal of American Folklore, Volume 47, 1934, New York. Henry C. Davis, Negro Folklore in South Carolina, published in 1914 in the Journal of American Folklore. J. F. Dobie, Tone the Bell Easy. Richard M. Dawson, spelt D-O-R-S-O-N, American Negro Folktales. Drums and Shadows, Survival Studies Among the Georgia Coastal Negroes. W. E. B. Du Bois, The suppression of the African slave trade to the United States of America, 1638 to 1870. Portugal, slaves and colonies, abolition of slave trade, treaties with England, 1869 to 1870. Bill on Slave Trade, 1871, reissue in New York by Schocken Books, 1969. Arthur Huff Fawcett, spelled Fauset. Negro Folktales from the South in the Journal of American Folklore. Must try and access a copy of that because I think that would be interesting to read. L.C. Fortier, Louisiana Folktales in Memoirs of the American Folklore Society, Volume 2, 1895. Ambrose Elliot Gonzalez, The Black Border, Gullah Stories of the Carolina Coast, with a glossary, published in 1922. Joel Chandler Harris, Uncle Remus, His Songs and His Sayings, The Folklore of the Old Plantation, published in New York by the Appleton Century Company, 1881. Langston Hughes and Anna Bontemps, editions of Book of Negro Folklore, 1958. Zora Neale Hurston, Mules and Men, Philadelphia. C.V. Jamison, Alabama Legend Concerning the Will-o'-the-Wisp, published in the Journal of American Folklore, Volume 18, 1905. Charles C. Jones, Negro Myths from the Georgia Coast Told in the Vernacular, Detroit, Singing Tree Press, 1969. The original was published by Boston and New York, Houghton Mifflin in 1888. Andrew Long, Custom and Myth, London, 1901. Howard W. Odum, Cold Blue Moon, Black Ulysses of Far Off. Elsie Clues Parsons, Folklore from the Cape Verde Islands, in Memoirs of the American Folklore Society, 1923. Folklore of the Sea Islands, South Carolina, Tales from Guilford County, North Carolina. L. Pendleton, Notes on Negro Folklore and Witchcraft in the South, published in 1890 in the Journal of American Folklore. William Alexander Percy, Lanterns on the Levee, Recollections of a Planter's Son, New York, 1941. Kenneth Porter, Flying Africans, published in 1945, reprinted in Common Ground, Primer for White Folks, 1945, by Doubleday. Newbell Niles Puckett, Folk Beliefs of the Southern Negro. Vance Randolph, The Devil's Pretty Daughter and Other Ozark Folk Tales. Samuel Gaillard Stoney and Gertrude Matthews Shelby, Black Genesis. Thomas W. Talley, Negro Folk Rhymes, Talley spelt Talley. Donnell van der Voort Collection, Wiley and the Hairy Man, the manuscripts of the Federal Writers Project of the Works Progress Administration for the state of Alabama. Annie W. Whitney and Carolyn C. Bullock, Folklore from Maryland, Memoirs of the American Folklore Society. And thus concludes today's and yesterday's reading of The People Could Fly, which I thoroughly enjoyed and find inspiring, and especially the magic woven through it. It's lovely to preserve people's magic, and there are actual stories in American Indian, I think among the Sioux Nation, of, it's one of my favourite stories actually, of a situation. I don't know if it's make-believe or it's taught that it's actually happened, a true story, but I don't know how. Well, I do know how, as a witch, I do know how it's possible. But anyway, I'll tell you the story quickly before we finish up. So there was this mountain where the Sioux Nation were, and anyway, they were under attack by, the army, the United States Army at the time. This is back, I believe, in the 1800s. And the army had the medicine man and the chief of the Sioux Nation had them kind of trapped, kind of under siege, had them surrounded around this mountain. There was no way of escape, none. They could go up the mountain, they could come down the mountain, but if they came down, they would have been slaughtered and were taken prisoner. So apparently this is a true story, but I can't remember the exact details of it now, but we could probably, if you Google it, you'd probably find it somewhere on the internet. And anyway, so what happened was they waited for several days and they were running out of food and water. But eventually what happened was the white, British, English, French, whoever were making up the army at that time frame, the white colonialists that had the medicine man and the chief kind of trapped in that way, witnessed an eagle and a hawk fly off the top of the mountain and fly away. And for some reason they just got this weird vibe about the eagle and the hawk, so they climbed up into the mountain to search for and to finally kill the medicine man and the chief of the tribe, and they were nowhere to be found. They had somehow magically, it is a real thing, it's called atavism. I don't know how it's done, but it would take immense magical power. But they had somehow turned themselves into an eagle and a hawk and had flown away and thereby saved themselves from being slaughtered by the white man. So apparently that's a true story, and it gives me chills to this day. Just the mere thought of being that determined to survive, but also having that much magic that you could turn yourself into the living embodiment of birds of prey to be exact, and fly away. So I just leave you with that thought, because even saying it, that story, I'm shaking with happiness that they got away, and happiness and awe and respect for their great power, by the way. And like in the story of the people could fly, the old man saying, I wish I could help these other people, but they will have to run. They didn't have enough of their own spiritual power or magic to be able to fly. So on that note, I wish you all a beautiful, wonderful, magical, peaceful existence wherever you are on planet Earth. May you remain free. May you remain happy. May you remain blessed. But may you always preserve the stories of your people, your ancestors that love you, and preserve our knowledge of our own personal histories. It's important. Never again. as we Jews say about the Holocaust. Never again. Stay free, maintain the wild, stay joyful and zesty and proud of whom you are, and God and Goddess bless you all, always. Amen v'salah. Bye for now.